Wabam! Good morning, friends. You probably still remember these scrap-carded fluff bats? And if you don't, you must be new, and then welcome to my channel. Here is a link to that video. Anyway, they were very great and I was quite disappointed with the color, and you guys had some thoughts about me spinning pure wool for socks, and I am nothing if not a people pleaser. So we are going to add some acrylic to make some more strengthened sock yarn bats, and also a more colorful one. Two birds, one stone, there is a saying about this. In the past, I also already made a video about carding acrylic yarn, but we're going to do this again. This time, however, I was a little bit smarter and did not choose 3-ply yarns, but this is just a singles yarn that I got a long time ago. Oof. A lot of you guys were like, yikes, when I said that I made a 18-kilometer hike on my pure wool socks. A thought I have on that is nylon and acrylic and superwash methods and everything are a very modern invention. So the thought that you need those to make your socks sturdy is also really modern. Socks, on the other hand, are not a modern invention. So they have been wool all through history. And there probably is truth in adding plastic to your socks, making them more durable, but we as a species have been walking on socks for eras without adding any plastic to them. That's my 2 cents on that. But I am mostly willing to try this though, especially because it gives me a great opportunity to add more color to the sock yarn, because I already have gray socks. Now that I am just here snipping and carding along, maybe I could tell you a little story. Story time. A story about this particular yarn even. I bought this yarn when I was in high school. I think like junior year or tweede middelbaar. And at that point in time there was this big Noro yarn craze among crochet designers, and I was crocheting mostly at the time. But as I was in high school, I of course had little to no money, and I bought all my yarn from discount stores. Now this yarn, I think wasn't from the discount store, but like the brand chain, the chain craft store Veritas, which for my doing, this was a very expensive skein of yarn. At that time in my life, I was in a very big hat craze. I wanted to crochet a hat for every day of the year so that I would wear a different hat every day. Is this relatable? I hope other crafters do this as well. So of course I crochet a hat with it. But as I was crocheting, I noticed that the dyeing of this yarn is so awkward. The spacing of it, like I will show you that I have some carded fluffs that have half because the colors on that part were really short, but I also have full ones because then the color suddenly was a lot longer. The colors also were completely and wildly different from one another. This is the first part of green, and this is the second. That's a completely different green. And to make matters even worse, there wasn't enough yarn to make a full hat. So I had this hat that didn't fit me, but because the yarn was so expensive, I kept it for like at least 10 years. And then I think last year I finally got the courage to unravel it And now I am just snipping it apart, carding it back to its basic properties. Do you also have such a story about a yarn you were so excited for, but then it was just the biggest disappointment of your life? Well, that's maybe an exaggeration, but it was a disappointment nonetheless. So do tell me in the comments if you have a similar story, or if you recognize the need for a different hat every day, just to show off your skills. Now let's fuse this and this together. And in my mind, I am hoping it will look some sort of like a galaxy bat. That would be really cool. Let's put this on a drum cutter! Will this be overkill? Let's check out now. Okay, so now these 4 bats can go 2 ways. Either they will become the most beautiful, colorful, awesome sock yarn you and I will have ever seen, or they might become just the most ugliest yarn you and I have ever seen. Now you will just have to sit and wait, and I will just go and have to sit and spin to find out. So let's do that. Let's get spinning. The blend of the very lanolin-y greasy fleece with the dry acrylic yarn actually is a really pleasant spin, regardless of how it's looking. Which right now is also not too bad. Okay guys, I finished spinning the first bat. Are you maybe a little bit curious how my chain plied, colourful, grey, whatever skeins look like? Drumroll please. This is not the worst yarn I have ever seen. Can't vouch for you, of course. It quite reminds me a bit of confetti. But maybe that is because we're right now in Lent, and here in Belgium and the Netherlands we have this big tradition of carnaval with all kinds of processions with floats and everybody is dressed up and there is a lot of confetti being thrown around. Around this period, cities in Belgium and the Netherlands are looking very bedazzled with confetti everywhere. So yeah, some carnival skeins. But of course, that was only one bed. We've got 3 more, and we've got 3 skeins out of 1 bed. See? 3 pairs of socks. Now, when I was spinning up that first bed of very colourful grey fluff and everything, I had some serious difficulties with Bernadette. And actually it all came to the same problem I was having last time, and that problem was that the drive band was just too old and coming apart. I had to actually work in the last millimeter of space I had on the braking system, while actually we've got multiple centimeters. So I finally decided, with much anxiety towards it, to change her drive band. And I did. She spins like a charm right now. And this new drive band is actually making me inexplicably happy just because it's green. Green! It's green! Guys, I have spent the last day and a half spinning the remaining 3 beds. I do not recommend this behavior. It is reckless. But no time to be faffing around like this. I need to wet set my 9 skeins and then start knitting. We've had yarn drying on a tree, and now we have yarn drying on a broomstick. So I kind of promised myself, and you don't know this, but I also promised you, that I would finish 1 pair of socks before the end of this video. So let's get to it. Now when I'm making these kind of scrappy bad socks or scrappy socks, however you want to call them, I'm mostly not following a pattern. But I will show you what I like to do when I have got these crazy funky yarns and actually know exact measurements of how much I have. I like to start with what they call a Turkish cast on. So you wrap your yarn around 2 needles for as much stitches as you need, or well, half the stitches that you need, because every wrap around will count for a stitch on the top needle and a stitch on the bottom needle. You then knit them, but you have to be careful to only take the stitches off the top needle you're working on, so that they still remain on the bottom needle. You could like pull the bottom needle out a little further. So I have gotten to my desired width, which is approximately 16 stitches on every of the 4 needles, because I have rather broad feet. colors are looking really cool. And then I just knit straight until the point where my arch of my foot meets my heel. Then I will put in a spare bit of yarn for a afterthought heel. Well, bam. Let me just... So, exactly 2 months after you saw me card up the original Scrappy Bats, we have a pair of socks. I am really loving these socks aesthetically. They are the right genre of chaos for my chaos brain. I want my grubby little goblin hands all over these kind of socks. While the original yarn made me think a lot of carnival, actually the socks remind me a lot more of impressionist paintings. They're just Monet paintings. Change my mind. The idea of adding scrap acrylic to my scrap sock yarn was coined by one of you, so thank you very much for the idea. Now, fabric-wise, I think I kind of prefer the ones that were fully wool. Somehow these feel really dry on my feet. I don't know how to exactly describe the feeling. I would almost say they are scratchier than the wool socks. In any case, they will get a lot of wear since it is still winter and not very warm over here. Especially in this sock, there are some really vibrant parts. And actually that's not such a good sign because that's where the acrylic and the wool didn't blend as much as I would like. In this sock it is really good. You see that all the acrylic parts have a bit of grey in them, so there is wool in there. I am not walking on any part that are 100% acrylic. Which theoretically it's not a problem to walk on 100% acrylic, but I am a wool snob, as has been established on this channel. Well, this pair of socks only took me 3 of the 9 skeins that I had. Yeah, my estimate of 3 pairs of socks was kind of correct. In a way, these socks also resemble like the beautiful Noro yarn I had in mind when buying the cheap acrylic yarn, much more than the original acrylic yarn did. So that's another thing why I do like them very much in an aesthetic way. On the viewfinder, they do still look very grey. But in reality, these socks are one of the most colorful things I have ever made. And that's quite an achievement, because it's not a secret that I love color. My feet are actually getting quite cold, so I'm going to put these socks back on, and all that is left for me to say to you is, if you like these kind of fiber shenanigans, then maybe you could like, comment or subscribe. But that is, of course, only up to you. And as for me, I will see you in a next video. Bye! You know, get down here. Which is approximately 16 stitches on every... Well, bam!